Now, do you have a structure in place? Because again, when people talk about structure, part of the concern has to do with that structures take money. They take money to build. Now, and that, of course, this is not a question of course, in some other climes, you have people who actually put down their own money, you know, to put that structure together. You have the Michael Bloombergs and others who spend their own money because they have something they... But people are asking that, for example, in the ANN, do you have, say, party offices in 36 states? Do you have structures in the local governments? Because these are all things that take money. Someone told me that on election day, for example, you're required to have an agent in each of the polling centers, and there are almost 9,000 of these. That if you paid each of those 5,000 naira for that day, you'll be talking of 600 million. If you paid them 10,000, we're talking of over a billion, 1.2 billion naira. Do you have, I mean, talking about you now, do you have the kind of structure that can make these people you're making reference to believe, and not just believe, get them to go out on the day of election and vote?
Well, so let me start with a very quick analogy, and the answer is yes, we have the structure, but the structure is not the one that the political class is used to. Why? Because the currency of that structure required to build the structure is different. In fact, the flow of money is different from the political class and the nation builders class. So I keep saying, fella, I'm not a politician. I'm a nation builder. And many of the people that you've seen, whether it's also Obi, Ezekwesili, Kingsley Moghalu, we're not politicians. We're a different breed of people. We are some of the people who have always believed that the greatest challenge we have with turning a blessed country like Nigeria into a great nation is just getting good governance for Nigeria and getting politicians out so that nation builders can govern. Now, what is the most significant difference between politicians as we know it today and nation builders? Is that politicians usually, in a sense, use money to buy votes so that they get power, to steal money, to be able to pay money, to buy votes, to keep power. And so it's a money power cycle. They use money to buy votes, votes keep them in power, they use the power to acquire money, the money gets them, you know, that's what they do. And in the course of doing this, for their money to have value, they impoverish the people. So they make sure the people are poor so that when they finally give them a slice of bread after stealing their bakery, that they would still say, oh, thank God for you. And so that is the political cycle. We know it, we've seen it, you know, it's consistent. What we haven't seen is the nation builder cycle. And the nation builders are the people who have an ideology, who have a heart for the people, who really want to see a great nation emerge, and who most of the time are competent and capable enough, have demonstrated their capacity in building other things in their career line. So you can see the leadership that they have. But the thing is, they speak belief. And when they speak belief, what happens is that politicians give voters money. With nation builders, voters give politicians money. And what politicians do is we owe them performance. What happens is, because normally politicians give voters money, they don't owe them anything. And so what I'm saying here is this: the kind of structure that politicians use is brick and mortar. Having offices all over this, having ward offices everywhere, that is not what is going to win the election. You know why? Because those structures do not get out the 68 million people who don't vote. Do you see what I'm saying? So that's not what that voters bloc responds to. They respond to messaging. And much of that messaging is going to be originated and using the power of technology through social media, and then they will take it off social media and use it to touch all the people that are within their own circles of influence. So someone like you will read something on social media, and now we're saying, don't just read, accept responsibility, because you want a better nation. So call your driver, call your nanny, call your auntie, call your parents in the village and get involved. And that way, we are seeing that the message is penetrating deep into places that normally people would not have cared to penetrate those messages to. So this new structure is not brick and mortar. It's not offices everywhere. It's groups of people. And some of those groups have been in existence before now, but they never took a position. Now they are taking a position and saying, we're getting involved and we like what you say. We like what we're hearing from you. They are the ones reaching out to us. We're not even the ones calling them. Many of them youth groups all across this country. I've just been endorsed by a coalition of youth in governance that has, listen to this, my brother, 80 youth groups that have national presence all across Nigeria. Just last week, I was invited to a meeting. There is some organization that claims to have 12 million members across Nigeria that are saying, we like what you're saying. We really like you. We want to hear from you. What are you going to do? And they had questions. So that's the kind of thing that is going to happen. They're already meeting. You will not see Alliance for New Nigeria over in their community, but they are connected. And they're connected not only to the party, but they're connected to the individual, they're connected to the message, they're connected to a movement. That movement is what is going to surprise the political class.
Now,
I promise you.
At the point at which you are, let me now address some specifics.
Yes.
What you alluded to it in passing earlier on when you talked about corruption. There's nothing that anyone who takes a leadership position, especially the presidency in Nigeria, will be able to achieve if he or she doesn't take on corruption, fighting corruption. The current government, as a matter of fact, the argument is that most governments that have come up until now say they are fighting corruption, but it does appear as if maybe the success is muted at best.
You're being very kind.
What would you do differently, given your knowledge of what is going on?
Okay, so let's start by understanding that corruption is like a poison. It kills many things. It kills individuals in terms of just the soul of people. Those who engage in corrupt practices, who steal money that doesn't belong to them, who inflate contracts, who find ways around creating revenue without creating value. Many times those people, the first thing corruption does to their soul, it kills their soul, it kills their conscience, and it therefore corrupts their ability to think well on other things. So you find visionaries that used to have great vision, and then they went and they stole some money, and the next thing you see, they start talking rubbish, absolute rubbish. You will be wondering what happened to this person. Corruption did that to them. But that's not all. Corruption kills the society. Because basically, not only does it just take the soul of the society, it makes people become literally wicked to one another. I have to then become, you become less than a human being to me once I am choosing to become corrupt, and that begins to happen over. But that's not all. Corruption kills businesses and economies, and we will talk about that. But the question, what do you do about corruption? Well, there are about 4 key things we have to do as it relates to corruption. Number 1, you have to deal with corruption, taking it the way I just did, at an individual level. And I will come back and talk about that for a little. Then number 2, you have to deal with it at an institutional level. And then number 3, you've got to deal with it at an international level. But to be able to make all of these things work, you're going to have to deal with corruption at an ideological level. And I'll tell you what I mean. So with an individual, we've got to get back to the point where the value of integrity is appreciated by each and every single person. So we want to drive integrity into the psyche of every Nigerian. And I'll say it this way. You know, everything that you try to go a war against, it only seems like it's always multiplied, whether it was war against indiscipline, war against terrorism, war against, whatever you war against multiplies. It is not what you war against that is the issue, it's what you're warring for. In other words, rather than fight corruption, promote integrity. Integrity is the light in the darkness of corruption. And when you drive the value of integrity, the reward for integrity, the respect for integrity and the people who have it, as opposed to the disdain of the people who have integrity, what integrity do for me? Who integrity help? Those kind of things. You've got to change that narrative and make sure you drive it and people know what the impact of corruption is on themselves. Number 2, you've got to make your institutions, strengthen them, to be able to deal effectively, drive integrity in, but also deal with corruption, as it were. So it must be more difficult for people to steal. It must be easier for people to report those who steal. It must be faster for you to investigate them and investigate them effectively, but then more also to prosecute them, and then to make sure you deliver on the sanctions in a way that everybody lands from. Okay, so you've got to strengthen, whether it's the processes using technology and making sure it's very difficult for you to the next thing is making sure that you work also with the international bodies. Because one of the things that happens is that every time people steal, the first thing they try to do is to make their money, what they call cash, liquid, which means turn it from naira into, whether it's US dollar, whatever, especially US dollar. What that thing does that is amazing is that it creates a false demand for foreign exchange.
Yes.
And so to a large extent, and the people who still don't care how much the exchange rate is, okay? So all they do is they just go out and then they buy the foreign exchange. Of course, our naira weakens, the dollar strengthens, and then they take that money out and try to use it to buy things outside the country, because if they do the transactions within the country, they believe it can be traced. Much of that kind of money that goes out, the international community has a way of tracking it very effectively. So we want to be able to know when our money leaves this place. Can you please let us know? And the only reason why they typically don't work with us in repatriating it is that they know that it is the system that produced that cash drain that you are giving it back to. So it's really just a recycling. But once they are able to trust you, and they are able to say, listen, we know that you fella, and your team, and the party, and you are people of integrity. And it's very interesting. Alliance for New Nigeria has 3 core values, apart from our principles, but it's transparency, it's integrity, and it's excellence. And so those values are not just Fela's values, they are the values that the party. So my party is not going to ever be the one that will get you to try to do something that it shouldn't be. In fact, there was a time when we really were challenged by money politics, and there was some guy who was in our party who was throwing money all around the place. Guess what? Our party developed a hashtag, ANN not for sale. That means money failed in ANN, and like I keep saying, money will fail in 2019 elections. And that mentality is what we are bringing into government. It's not just one man, it's the party. The corruption as we have it today is not just about the one person, whether it's President Buhari or Jonathan or any. No, it's the party that is a corrupt institution that usually produces even sometimes the good people. But that party ensures that the corruption keeps longer. ANN is not a corrupt party, and ANN values integrity, values excellence, and values transparency. That's why you can be sure that we will deal with corruption.